A few weeks ago, I made a video on my channel about raising bilingual children, and in that video I talked about how we're raising our daughter to be bilingual in Romanian and English. In that video I also asked you if you'd be interested to watch a video about myths regarding bilingual children, and I got many messages saying yes, so here we are today. In preparing for this video, I was careful to look at research that dispels these myths. And this was interesting because I, in my day job, run a research communication company called Research Retold. I engage often with researchers and have to read very convoluted research papers and communicate those findings in more easy to understand and accessible ways. So this video was fun to put together because it kind of felt like what I do for a living, but for fun. If you like this video, make sure to let me know in the comments. I put a lot of effort into it, so I hope it pays off. Finally, in this video, I'll be talking about 5 myths, and I will for sure put the references down below for those of you who are nerds like me who want to find out more information and read more. So without further ado, let's start talking about the first myth when it comes to raising bilingual children. The first myth we're going to tackle today is that learning 2 languages will confuse your child. Now, what is language confusion? So language confusion is this popularly held belief that children are incapable of learning 2 languages without experiencing confusion. However, there is no evidence to support the existence of language confusion in bilingual children. Now, there is something to be said about bilingual children who may sometimes mix the grammar rules, or they might use words from both languages in the same sentence, otherwise known as code mixing. So I imagine Harper one day coming to me and saying, "I want more apple." This is a normal part of bilingual language development, and it does not mean that your child is confused. Rather than being a sign of confusion, code mixing can be seen as a sign of bilingual children's ingenuity. Usually by age 4, children are able to separate both languages, but they might still on occasion mix or blend both languages in the same sentence. They will ultimately learn to separate both languages correctly. The second myth is that speaking 2 languages to a child might cause a speech or language disorder. Just like some monolingual children have a language delay or disorder, a similar proportion of bilingual children will have a language delay or disorder. However, evidence that one bilingual child has language difficulties does not mean that bilingualism leads to language difficulties in general. If parents are concerned that their bilingual child does have a delay, parents in that situation should first consult a pediatrician. But what I found very interesting when reading more about this is the researchers were saying that there is a challenge with pediatricians correctly or properly diagnosing bilingual children. There's these 2 extremes. On the one hand, some say, don't worry, it's fine. They have this very relaxed approach, which generally leads to diagnosing children too late. And on the other hand, you have the very extreme approach that effectively puts parents off from teaching a second language. If parents do not feel comfortable with their pediatrician's opinion, they should find or ask for referral to a speech-language pathologist with expertise in bilingualism if possible. This is because it takes a high level of skill to properly assess a kid's abilities in both languages. Overall, from my reading on this topic, bilingualism should never really be used as an explanation for a language or speech disorder. If a bilingual child has a speech or language problem, it will show up in both languages. However, these problems are not caused by learning 2 languages. The third myth is that exposing infants and toddlers to more than one language may cause delays in speech or language development. Now, all children, monolingual or bilingual, develop their language skills differently, but learning multiple languages does not delay language development. Research says that learning a second language does not trigger language confusion like we talked about in point 1, nor does it negatively impact language skills. Bilingual children are not more likely than monolingual children to have difficulties with language, or to show delays in learning, or to be diagnosed with a language disorder. Milestones of pre-language development are the same in all languages. Like other children, most bilingual children speak their first words by age 1, like mama, dada. By age 2, most bilingual children can use 2-word phrases such as my bowl, no juice. These are the same developmental milestones for children who only learn 1 language. As mentioned before, a bilingual toddler might mix parts of one word from one language with parts of a word from another language, and this might take a little bit of time for the person who they're communicating with to understand their meaning, but this in itself is not a reflection of abnormal or delayed development. The total number of words, meaning the sum of total words in both languages that a child is learning, should be comparable to the number of words of a child the same age speaking just one language. That is, if you add together known words in each language and then make sure you don't double count cross-language synonyms such as dog and katel, then bilingual children know approximately the same number of words as monolingual children. The fourth myth is that you need to be a native speaker of a language to be able to share with your children. After making the last video, one of my viewers, April, if you're watching, thank you so much for being here and for messaging me. She actually shared that she is teaching her daughter Spanish even though she is not a Spanish native speaker. Now, I think this is amazing, and it also prompted me to read more about this topic. Now, it seems obvious when I say it now, but indeed it does not matter if you are not a native speaker in that language to be able to teach your child to be bilingual. Now, what does matter is consistent exposure to that language, being consistent with your efforts and the lessons that you're giving your child in that language. And it's also crucial to ensure exposure to people who are fluent in that language, as well as native speakers, for example, in the form of lessons or traveling. A research scientist at the University of Washington Institute of Learning and Brain Sciences says that it is possible to give very young children the opportunity to start learning a second language with only 1 hour of play per day in an early education setting. And the final myth I want to talk to you about today is that children with disabilities are not able to learn more than one language. My best friend is a behavioral analyst and she works with children with disabilities, and I made this portion of the video specifically thinking about her and the amazing work that she does. From my reading on this topic, I learned that all children with communication disorders will have challenges in developing their communication skills. But this does not mean that these children are not capable of developing a second or third language, nor does it mean that children with disabilities will experience language confusion if raised bilingually. There is research that looked at children with developmental language disorders, speech sound disorders, who are deaf or hard of hearing, children with Down syndrome, or children with autism spectrum disorders. The evidence-based conclusion is that raising children who have these impairments bilingual will not cause further delays or challenges compared to monolingual children who have the same impairments. That's it for me this week. It was a bit of a different video to put together because I had to wrap my head around some pretty complex research papers, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it valuable. Please let me know what you thought of it down below, and also if you had any myths that you would add to this list. Don't forget to check out the list of references behind this video. I think it's cool if you want to know more about the research behind this. It feels very academic and reminds me of my essay writing days at university, but this is a fascinating topic and I really enjoyed learning more about it. Thanks a lot for hanging out again with me this week, and I'll catch you next week. Bye.